or you're managing projects on the side, requires a diverse set of skills. Although many of the textbooks and courses cover a wide range of project management skills, many of the essential and practical skills for being an exceptional and well-rounded project manager typically aren't included. Throughout this course, we will cover the top 20 skills to help you become a highly effective project manager. Each lesson will cover a few skills, both foundational and professional, including what the skill is, why it's so important, and how to develop and use it. Each lesson will end with an exercise and case study, so you can practically apply and improve the skills that we cover. There are no prerequisites for this course, so whether you're brand new to project management, have a high-level understanding of it, or have managed many projects, this course is for you. In this course, you will find 8 lessons covering the 10 foundational and 10 professional skills, as well as 8 exercises and 6 case studies. Each lesson will cover 3 or 4 skills, including what the skills are, why they are important, and how to practically develop or leverage them within the project management space. Each lesson will end with management and business strategy space for about 10 years, and I have extensive experience in project management, strategy development and implementation, channel optimization, and profit maximization. I've been lucky enough to work across a diverse range of environments, from large corporations to small startups to nonprofits, and from banking, fintech, and insurtech to healthcare, wellness, and environmental sustainability. With the usable and adaptable skills that we'll cover in this course, I've been able to excel across all of these environments and industries. And I'm really excited to share some of my insights, knowledge, and experience so that you can do the same. There's a lot to cover, so let's jump in. Welcome to Lesson 1, Understanding Project Management. This lesson will manager starts within any business. There are a range of types of management. Operational management forms the foundation of the business, while strategic management guides the overall direction of the business. Project management works across all of these management spaces to create change and achieve the organization's overall strategy. Without project management, this really wouldn't be possible. First, we'll look at what project management is. This is really just to get everyone on the same page. So before we can jump into what project management unique product or service, you'll see that I've highlighted the words temporary and unique. This is really important because these two words are specific to project management. With the project, the team, the work, the resources, etc. are all gone. For example, if we look at an example of building a house as a project, use the building site and move off onto another project. And then looking at the word unique. A project is unique in that it has never been done before. So taking that definition of a project, this is how it fits into project management. In the very left-hand side box, you have what happens in the project environment. So that is that a project, which is a temporary endeavor, is undertaken to develop something. If we move to the second box, you can see that the result or outcomes of this project is a unique product or service. You can see that these two boxes are the entire extent of the project environment. The project environment is the only environment that the project manager is responsible for. Once this project output is achieved, the unique product or service must move out of the project environment and into the business environment. When it's in the business environment, it is no longer the responsibility of the product manager. If we look at the third box, we can see that this project outcome is taken into the business environment, and it's used within the business environment. And then looking at the last block, we can see that these project outcomes are used within the business environment to benefit the business in some way. This view is absolutely key because it clearly shows where the project environment starts and ends. It's so important to have a clear, well-defined point at which the project is completed and is no longer the responsibility of the project manager. When the output from the project moves from the project environment into the business environment, the project manager should have no more influence over it. It's no longer the project manager's problem. This is so important because lots of project managers get involved when the project fails and are perceived as bad project managers if the project output doesn't deliver a business benefit. But if the project has delivered what was asked for, it means that the project manager was successful. If business didn't ask for the right things, it's not actually the project manager's responsibility. For example, looking at the building of a house example again, once the project manager has built a house, they hand it over to the owner. If the project manager successfully delivered on all of the requirements, it's no longer the project manager's responsibility. It's now the owner's responsibility. So essentially, project management involves leading and managing the work of all teams involved in the project to achieve the outcomes or aims of the project. This all happens within certain constraints, such as timelines, budgetary constraints, people and resource constraints, level of experience, etc. At a broad level, project management involves planning and organizing a company's resources to successfully achieve a project. This can be anything from implementing a new system, to launching a new product, to training a sales force, etc. Here is an overview of the levels within the project management role. A project administrator is responsible for scheduling meetings, recording decisions made, and reducing the project into manageable and doable tasks. Junior project managers direct, guide, and manage the work of those under their supervision. Their primary responsibility is to plan, coordinate, and oversee operations of the project. An intermediate project manager handles the medium to large projects for an organization. Senior project managers are responsible for the success of the project, coordinating efforts and work across teams and managing multidisciplinary teams. And the program manager oversees the fulfillment of larger organizational goals by coordinating multiple projects without directly managing them. People often ask what project management is versus what product management is. Product management is focused on creating and achieving the vision and goals for the product. It's the ongoing management of that product to meet certain KPIs, and it has a high strategic focus. Project management, on the other hand, takes these goals and visions and makes them a reality. It's a temporary endeavor that happens over a limited time period. The work of the project manager focuses on capacity creation, work coordination, and execution. So while there are some skills that overlap between these two spaces, there is actually a huge difference in these roles. Product and project managers work within completely different life cycles. A project manager works within the project life cycle, while a product manager works within the product life cycle. Now we have a clear understanding of what project management is. Let's take a look at what skills and capabilities are required to be a successful project manager. We've got the pretty common iceberg analogy here. At the top of the iceberg are the more traditional and technical skills that project managers need. These skills are taught as part of traditional project management courses and books. At the bottom of the iceberg, and by far the majority, are the professional and socio-political skills that project managers need. These skills are usually not taught within project management courses. These are developed through experience and specialized courses, and we're going to cover the majority of them here. The traditional skills at the top make a good project manager. When combined with the professional skills at the bottom, it makes a really exceptional project manager. So as a project manager, what capabilities do we really need? This looks at similar skills that were included in the iceberg view and breaks them down into the traditional capabilities on the left-hand side. So these are the skills typically taught as part of project management courses. These capabilities were at the top of the iceberg. And then on the right-hand side, we have the capabilities that have more recently been identified as necessary within the project management space. These are all of the elements that make a good project manager great. These are the capabilities that were at the base of the iceberg. Okay, so PEAKS is a framework for core functional competencies within the project management space. There are 5 elements related to our competence, the first 4 of which are the raw materials and make up the foundation. This includes our personal characteristics, the experience we've gathered over our lifetimes, our attitudes to those around us, our circumstances, and life in general, and lastly, the knowledge that we have. Then we have our skills, which when leveraging the first 4 elements, creates competency. Firstly, looking at personal characteristics. This is who we are and includes our natural likes, dislikes, and traits. It includes how we react to situations, and typically our personal traits cannot be easily changed and shifted by traditional training. So this could be how confident you are in yourself and your abilities. It can be your preference for being organized, and then a big one within the project management space is your level of self-awareness. Next, looking at your experience. So this is acquired from what you have done and the experience that you've gained from that. When looking at project management competencies, this is related to the work, whether paid or not, that you have done that is related to the project management space, including planning the project, problem solving, and leadership. Next is attitude. This is different from our personal characteristics because it's our chosen response to situations. So while it might be informed by your characteristics and your core values, it's still a choice. As it relates to project management, this includes our level of concern related to what our stakeholders want and need, how ethically we behave, and how kind we are to those around us. Then we have knowledge, which refers to what we know. This is everything that we've learned up until this point, both from a theory perspective and through our experience. This is things like theories, standards, guides, practices, etc. And then how these things are applied. For example, risk identification and management, negotiations, and calculations. So those are the raw materials that we have to work with. Next, we use our skills to result in competence. Skills refer to how well we apply these raw materials, creating a level of competence. Part of the skillful application of personal characteristics, experience, attitude, and knowledge is being able to apply it with intelligence, thought, and care. So this includes how you would get the best out of people in a range of environments, how you would resolve ambiguities throughout the elements of the project process, and then defining stakeholder requirements in a clear, applicable, and usable manner. Each of these aspects is key to our level of competence within the project management space. This course will touch on each of these elements with the aim to upskill you to use them, tweak them, and enhance them to your benefit with your project management approach, capabilities, and abilities. So what are we going to cover within this course? We're going to cover both the foundational skills, those are the skills at the top of the iceberg, as well as the professional skills, the skills at the base of the iceberg. Being a good project manager requires the balancing of these different skills. A successful project manager has all of these skills and knows how to effectively balance all of them. Rather than being really excellent at just one, it's much more useful to be decent at all of them. So throughout this course, we're going to cover the key skills that are essential for each phase of the project process. This includes running and managing the project, successfully kicking off a project and getting it going, skills for managing, influencing, and leading those around you, and then landing an awesome, high-quality project within timelines, within budget, etc., etc. As we touched on earlier, product managers and project managers work within two completely different lifecycle realms. A project manager works within the project lifecycle, while a product manager works within the product lifecycle. Although these are two completely different spaces and are usually displayed in complete isolation from each other, they actually do overlap at points. As a project manager, it's really important to be able to identify at which points you are responsible and at which points it's no longer your responsibility. So in this exercise, we're going to look at where the project lifecycle slots in. Here is the end-to-end lifecycle of a product. The product we're focusing on here is a savings account at a fintech company. At the very beginning of the lifecycle, you can see that the product starts as an idea. Then a concept of the product is created. After we have the product concept, the savings product gets defined. After it's defined, the product development can begin. After this stage, we have the introduction phase, where the product is introduced into the market. During this phase, heavy marketing and research and development is done, and the distribution channels are tested. This is followed by the growth phase, where the product begins to expand within the market. During the growth phase, new distribution channels are opened. We add more features to the product and add more support services. As the product matures more, work is done to improve the product quality, into new market segments, and increase distribution channels. During the saturation phase, the market has become saturated with competitors, and there is neither a growth nor decline in sales. At this point, minimal innovation at the product level is done, because really, the product only needs some small tweaks, if anything. If anything, customer service can be optimized at this point. And then decline. This usually happens if the product doesn't become a preferred brand. At this point, we can add some new features to improve the value proposition or explore new markets. So I've split the product lifecycle into different portions, and I would like you to decide which portions of this the project manager is responsible for. Once you've done that, we'll go through my suggested thinking and answers. This is looking at one of many variations. This will obviously vary depending on the specific business, product, etc. But the overriding message here should be that the project life cycles, or when projects happen, occur at various places within the product's life cycle. It is only at these places that the project manager would be responsible for the project, whereas the product manager, on the other hand, would be responsible throughout. During the development and introduction phase, these projects are likely to be focused on actually creating the product and the various channels that the product will be offered on. These projects tend to be larger, and they will no longer become the project manager's responsibility once the project has delivered all of the requirements set out. After that, everything will become the product manager's responsibility. During the growth phase, it's likely that there will be a few projects of varying length. These will likely be focused on tweaking the product or making changes to the channels. Again, during the maturity and stagnation phase, a few intermittent projects will happen, which are likely to add or change some features, and really just focus on optimizing the product. And then lastly, in the decline phase, there may not even be any projects in this phase, but if there are, these are likely to be small, and they may just be focused on making minor changes, removing the product from various channels, etc. Within a typical business, there would likely be other products that the project team is working on. This concept of where a project manager's responsibility lies is crucial because if it's not upheld, it can make the project manager incorrectly be portrayed as a poor project manager. This happens very often, so it's crucial to completely understand the boundaries. I'll share 3 cases and I'd like you to determine whether or not it still lies within the project manager's realm of responsibility. Case 1. A project has been initiated to develop a line of coffees to sell at a cafe, including Americanos, cappuccinos, and lattes. The scope of the project is to identify the ingredients needed for the coffees, that is, coffee, beans, milk, water, and sugar, source these ingredients, and launch these coffees at the coffee shop. This includes making them available for use at the coffee shop, making sure there is storage space for the products, and updating the necessary systems to allow customers to order them and pay for them, and making sure that they're included in the inventory of the store. Everything else associated with developing a new line of coffees is outside of the scope of the project, such as training the staff, marketing, etc. The project team successfully delivers these requirements within the required time frame. However, when closing off the project, the owner of the cafe complains that there is nothing to actually serve the coffee into. No one has thought to order coffee cups, so now there isn't space available in storage for the cups. There is no budget for the cups because all of the budget available was spent on the newly developed coffee line, etc., etc. The cafe does not own coffee cups, so it was obvious that in order to develop a new line of coffee, cups would be required. Is it the project manager's responsibility to organize the cups so that the line of coffee that he has worked on is able to be sold? I'd like you to give that some thought and we'll touch on the answers after the next 2 cases. Okay, case 2. There is a project underway to launch a new app. All of the requirements were clearly outlined upfront and a timeline and budget was agreed on. In the middle of the project owner asks whether an additional feature can be added to the scope of the project. The project manager agrees to add the extra feature because it'll only require a small amount of dev, and he adds it to the scoping document and informs it isn't actually as small as was initially thought. Even though this feature was not in the initial scope, whose responsibility is this additional feature? Okay, and case 3. A project team is working to deliver a list of clearly defined requirements for a new savings product. Halfway through the project, there is a significant system issue, which affects the entire company and means that some of the project team is pulled away from the savings product for a few weeks. Because of this reduced workforce, the team determines that they will not be able to deliver all of the requirements within the agreed upon timeframes. In order to meet the timeline, a feature will have to be removed from this release and will need to be done after the launch of the main project. The project manager makes the decision to delay the one feature, but doesn't communicate this change to the product owner, the project owner, or the various stakeholders. In this case, is it the project manager's responsibility to deliver this new feature? Case 1. Even though the coffee line or the deliverables of the project cannot be sold to customers without coffee cups, it is not the project manager's responsibility to organize the cups. If the project manager is willing to do this, it would likely need to be a whole separate project involving its own requirements, deliverables, etc. Case 2. It is the project manager's responsibility to deliver the feature because he agreed to it, he informed the necessary parties, and he made the decision to formally change the scope. This makes the feature a part of the project deliverables. If he hadn't agreed to the scope change, then it would definitely not be his responsibility. And when the features and deliverables that were defined upfront were delivered, the project would have been finished and none of it would have been the project manager's responsibility or problem after that point. It is only because he agreed to change the scope and followed the scope change process that he would be responsible for those changes. And case 3. It is the project manager's responsibility to deliver the feature, even if it's not within the project timelines that were agreed. Just because the project has run over time, it doesn't mean that it's no longer the project manager's responsibility. In a different scenario, if the project manager had communicated that they would not be able to deliver the feature, but that it would form part of a second project, and this was agreed upon by the project owners, stakeholders, etc., then it would no longer be the project manager's responsibility to deliver the feature as part of the project. This feature would form an entirely separate project. Welcome to Let's also touch on the importance of how to develop organizational awareness. The project management approach involves the selection of project management practices, means, and methods that the project management team should perform based on the specific high-level project characteristics gathered from the project charter. The two main approaches to project management are the traditional approach and the iterative approach. For any project, it's important to have a deep knowledge and understanding of the different technical approaches to project management. Once you have this thorough understanding, it'll allow you to select the correct methodology for the project, the team, and the organization. Unless you have this knowledge, it's very hard to select the correct approach. And unless you're using the correct approach, it will be very difficult to make the project a success. Here are the two main project management approaches. The left-hand side is what the traditional approach looks like. It requires that each phase of the project is completed before the subsequent phase can be started. And on the right-hand side, the iterative approach to project management is more of a continuous feedback loop. Looking at the traditional approach, it's linear, meaning that each phase must be fully completed before moving on to the next. It is usually used for one large project and has one large release. All of the requirements are clearly defined upfront, and the approach requires thorough documentation, usually for each stage of the process. There is very limited scope for changes to the project. Once the project is defined upfront, it's not really possible to change anything. And there is minimal customer involvement throughout the project, meaning that we don't get feedback from our customers as we go. Looking at the iterative approach to project management. This approach requires continuous releases, feedback gathering, and then making changes as necessary. It is a continuous loop. An iterative approach is usually either used for smaller projects or requires that larger projects are broken down into smaller pieces. There are multiple smaller releases rather than one large one, and there is minimal documentation required. The approach is rather to get it implemented with the aim to test it more quickly. Each step doesn't require extensive documentation. There is a scope for change throughout the project, although it really must be within reason. And there is typically engagement with the customer throughout the process. An example of the traditional approach to project management. If we were releasing a book, each phase of the project would need to be completed before we move on to the next phase. So first, we would need to create an overview of what content the book would entail. Then the book would need to be written and edited. Then the book would need to be designed. Only once all the text and design is complete can we actually publish the book. Here, each phase relies on the previous step. An example of an iterative project management approach could be product development. If you think of just about any app that you have on your phone, there are continuous updates and changes that are required on an ongoing basis. It's very likely that the app you initially downloaded looks pretty different from what it looks like now. These apps adapt and develop to the user needs over time, and this is an example of an iterative process. The project management approach that you decide to take should be based on a few elements. Firstly, the project team and how it operates. Some project teams work well with iterative approaches, whereas teams that rely on a high level of detail and structure may struggle. Second, the type of project and the deliverables. For example, if you're looking for a lot of customer feedback throughout the project, then an iterative approach would be necessary. And third, the organizational approach and structure. It can be difficult to run an iterative project when the rest of the organization is centered on a traditional approach. It is possible, but it can be hard. For example, in more traditional organizations, there are often policies in place that need a firm budget, a benefits realization statement, and a target date before a project can be approved. In this case, an agile approach really wouldn't work. So when is each type ideal? Well, the different approaches meet different requirements. You would use a traditional approach when you and/or your team need clear roles and responsibilities to operate optimally. If the team needs a clear direction, and you, your team, and your organization needs a high level of control over the project. In this approach, the project manager is accountable for the entire project. You would use an iterative approach if the project team operates in a flexible and collaborative manner. You would use it for a project that requires scope for changes if necessary, and for a project where ownership needs to be shared between everyone involved. In theory, hybrid project management means you could take any formal methodology and combine it with another. However, typically when people are talking about this concept, they're referring to hybrid agile project management or a hybrid agile methodology. This takes the flexibility and adaptability of agile and combines it with a more traditional and rigid approach of waterfall project management, where the tasks are listed in sequential order, much like a waterfall. Why hybrid project management? To effectively deliver a project, you have to choose the right approach. Agile methods can add to a faster delivery, meeting changing requirements and environments, and taking customer feedback into consideration. Waterfall project management gives you a clear, efficient plan and structure for project delivery. Marrying both together can give you an advantage for your project success. Now looking at how to select and apply the best project management methodology for your project, team, organization, etc. For your project to be successful, it requires that you effectively use and apply the correct project management framework. So once you've identified the correct project management approach, the next step is deciding which methodology within that approach should be used. Here are some of the different methodologies that fall within each of the different project management approaches. Each different methodology has a specific framework, and each framework has their own specific processes, templates, and tools. We won't go into the detail of these for each of these approaches, because each would really require its own full course. As we touched on, each of the methodologies have their own set of techniques, processes, tools, and templates. Selecting the correct methodology will depend on, firstly, the skills and experience of the team. If your team has always worked on waterfall projects, making the shift to an agile project really is big. The different methodologies require different skills and also different mindsets. So being aware of this and taking this into account is really important. 2, the expectations of the customers, stakeholders, etc. If your customers or stakeholders expect that there will be a deep customer involvement throughout the process, then an iterative methodology would make more sense. Whereas if your customers and stakeholders are expecting that the scope will remain unchanged and everything will be released all at once, then a more traditional methodology would be appropriate. 3, look at the organization's approach and structure. If the organization is hugely hierarchical and is largely inflexible, then following a traditional methodology such as waterfall may make more sense. 4, the budget and resources that you have available will have an impact on and be informed by the project management methodology. With limited resources and minimal budget, it may make more sense to use an iterative methodology, with the aim to implement and make changes as and when more budget and resources become available. And lastly, the flexibility and complexity of the project should inform the methodology. A highly flexible project would necessitate an iterative approach. It may be the case that different projects by one project team all use different approaches. So how do you choose the correct project management methodology? Step 1 is to look at the project size and scope. Projects come in all shapes and sizes. You may have a massive project that requires teams from multiple companies, runs across various countries, it lasts years, and it has a huge budget. And you may also have a small team working on a project to redesign a website for a few weeks. These are extreme examples, but they clearly show the wide variety of projects, each one which has a methodology that may be better suited to it. Looking at the massive project, the business needs are likely to change over time, given how long the project will run for. In this instance, we would need a framework that allows for change, where planning is done before each new phase, not all at once at the very start. In this case, Agile may be a good approach. In the smaller, less complex, few-week project, Waterfall may be a good approach because requirements are clear up front, and it's less likely that the business requirements will change within the short period that the project is running for. Step 2 is to shortlist potential methodologies. As you identify methodologies that could work, keep track of your options within a spreadsheet or similar tool. That way, you can easily compare the options and weigh up pros and cons of each. The goal is to identify which methodology will return the best results while minimizing project risks. Step 3 is to get the team buy-in. Even though you may think the framework you have selected is suitable, not everyone may agree with you. You need to get buy-in from everyone involved because they need to embrace it for your project to really be a success. This is a really important step. Step 4 is to validate the fit. To make sure you've made the right decision, you need to determine whether the methodology will work within the organization. This can be done by 1, doing a self-reflection to determine whether that methodology works for you. For example, does it help you to better manage the team? Does it help you to better manage stakeholders, etc.? 2, comparing the rate of success of projects using various different methodologies within your organization. Some of these success measures may be whether the project was delivered on time, within budget, within scope, etc. And 3, asking for feedback from teams who have used the methodology that you landed on. For example, did they find it useful? What were their difficulties, etc. And now we will have a look at what organizational awareness is and the skills and techniques to create an organizational awareness. Understanding your organization and the organization's context is an essential skill. This includes the organization's approach, the applications and tools, etc. The style of the organization impacts on the management style and the operations of the project team, and ultimately the project. The ownership, accountability, and where decision-making lies is based on the organization's structure and mode of operation. This is key as you need to know who makes decisions, what information they need to make those decisions, and where they sit in the business's hierarchical structure. This will help you to navigate who to get buy-in from and who to get sign-off from. Having this organizational context is essential as it informs not only the chain of command and where responsibilities sit, but it also informs which project management approach and methodology will be successful within that specific organization. And organizational awareness is key to successfully running and managing a project. Having this context will allow you to make the right decisions that are informed by your organizational understanding. For example, at a very basic level, if you don't understand how the organization works or who has what experience, then it's not possible to make a decision about what project management methodology would work within that organization. It allows you to communicate in a way that resonates with teams because you understand what's important to them, what drives them, and what they can actually do. If the people around you believe that you're fully informed and aware of how things happen, it'll make it easier for you to get buy-in from them. It promotes collaboration across teams and the organization as a whole because you know the roles and responsibilities and who fits in where. So it'll mean that you're able to bring the correct people for the job and use your organizational awareness to push for collaboration. Another thing to note here is that business politics may also impact on this. So having a thorough organizational awareness will help you to leverage or avoid politics to your benefit. And it helps you to build a shared understanding across the teams. You need to understand the organization, teams, roles, responsibilities, etc., to communicate in a way that's applicable and from a place that's informed. There are a few ways to develop an organizational awareness. This includes question and learn, asking questions and having a mindset to listen to learn. The goal in asking questions is to gather as much information as possible. You then need to learn from this and leverage this information. Roles and responsibilities. Get an understanding of the roles and responsibilities and even the politics of the business. This will help you to make sure that you go to the right people for the right things. It also means that you can avoid or use office politics however it benefits you. In some businesses, although certain people may not have influential roles on paper, in reality and due to office politics, they may actually be more influential than you think. Getting an understanding of each of these elements will provide you with some key information for your project. Systems and processes and ways of work. Understanding these things will give you more technical-based insights. Decision makers. Identify key decision makers and what scope they have to make decisions about. This is important to know because it'll mean that you can go directly to the person responsible or to the person with the necessary knowledge to make the decision. Get an understanding of what information is needed to make a decision. In this way, you can go to the right person with the right information and hopefully speed up the process and help parties to make the right and informed decisions. And the last point is to map out decision networks. Having a clear understanding and view of relationships and responsibilities of the decision makers will help you to keep track of everything and go to the right person for the job. Here is a decision network map. There are various ways to portray this. It can even just be listing the various people with their realms of responsibility. Here are some examples of the level of influence and decision-making power of various people. Please note that this is specific to the business in the case study. It is likely that this will vary based on the company, the team, the people involved, etc. Based on this specific one, please identify who you would go to for decisions on the below points. Number one, you are having difficulties with a project team member in that they are not meeting their commitments and are not delivering what they've agreed to. You have addressed this with them on various occasions, but you need guidance on how to proceed. 2, you are brainstorming different project management approaches to use for a project. You have got input from various departments, but now need someone to check your thinking and help you to make a decision. 3, in creating a new app, there is a customer-facing layout that you need input on, and a decision needs to be made around the formatting before you can proceed. 4, as part of your project, you have a detailed launch plan, including training, marketing, etc. You need someone to confirm what the positioning of the product should be, both in terms of the market positioning and the brand presence. Okay, now for the answers to the questions. Number one, the project sponsor would be your go-to. If you get stuck, they should be your go-to to help remove roadblocks and overcome issues. Their aim is to solve problems and make decisions to ensure the success of the project. Number two, the project sponsor should be your go-to again for this option. They understand the working of the project and the team, and they have an appropriate level of influence to make the approach you select stick. Number three, the product manager is responsible for all aspects of the product, particularly related to customer centricity. They know the customer inside out and can therefore make this decision. Number four, this will be both the product manager regarding the market positioning and the head of marketing regarding the brand presence. The project is at one of the biggest national banks in the country and is focused on creating and developing and then launching a rewards program that is used and integrated with every product in the company. It's a massive project in terms of budget, size, time, everything. But it needs to be delivered pretty soon. Here are some facts about the project. The deadline has been confirmed and cannot move, and it is soon. The requirements we have are not clear and are minimal. The budget has not been approved yet, but the company needs a clear budget before the project is approved. The team we're working with is competent and experienced in both agile and waterfall approaches. The rewards program needs to be customer-centric. The company follows traditional processes and requires that project deliverables and requirements are documented and approved before the project can be worked on. Which project management approach would you use? Based on these facts, the hybrid methodology makes the most sense. The point of the hybrid approach is to select the project management approach that is best suitable to each phase of the project. So if we look at the different facts of the project, we can see that different approaches make sense for the different phases. It's clear that the deadline is soon, so we don't have a lot of time to deliver on the project. It needs to be done quickly, so an agile approach would fulfill this. The requirements we have are not clear and are minimal, but the company follows a traditional process and requires that project deliverables and requirements are documented and approved before they can be worked on. Because of the company's requirements, the project requirements and deliverables need to be defined and approved before we can start implementing. This means that there is absolutely no scope for change, as would be the case with an agile approach. Therefore, a traditional approach would make the most sense here. The budget has not been approved yet, but the company needs a clear budget before the project can be started and approved. This means that the entire budget, and therefore the respective resources, etc., need to be approved and finalized upfront. Therefore, a traditional approach makes sense in this case. The company follows traditional processes and requirements that project deliverables and requirements are documented and approved before they can be worked on. The fact that the company is relatively traditional and needs everything documented and approved upfront is aligned with a traditional approach. That is, that all of the requirements, etc., are finalized and approved upfront before we move on to the next stage. The team we're working with is competent and experienced in both agile and waterfall methodologies. Because the team is both experienced and skilled in both methodologies, this isn't a restriction for us, so it means that they can easily switch or excel in either one. The rewards program needs to be customer-centric. An agile approach is central to customer centricity because it allows us to develop and test with customers on an ongoing basis and get feedback. This allows us to customize every piece of the rewards program to the customer's needs. Hello and welcome to Lesson 3, Getting the Project Going. Now that you know how to select and build a project management level of technical understanding. First, let's have a look at starting a project and the associated skills required. The key steps for starting a project are project initiation. This includes defining the business case and the project charter. Defining and planning the project. This includes the scope, budget, resources, the work breakdown schedule, the comms plan, and the risk management plan. And the first step to executing the project, which includes defining the measures of success and holding the kickoff meeting. It's really important to take the correct steps at the start of the project as it sets the stage for a successful project. These stages include defining the correct resources, stakeholders, project management approach and methodology, product, associated risks, the measures of success, and then holding a successful kickoff meeting. In short, resource planning is a strategic method of organizing and allocating resources to tasks needed to complete projects. Have you ever hit a part of your project where you need a certain specialist, but they're not available? Or where you needed a physical space that should have been booked 6 months in advance? On the flip side, have you ever had a project team member sitting on their hands waiting for a dependent task to be completed so that they can start their part? Resource planning is the process of determining how a business will allocate resources to a project, such as assigning tasks to individuals based on their skills and availability. Project managers use resource planning to make sure that they're using resources and members of their team effectively. This includes defining and identifying the correct people for the project team. To do this, you need to look at their skills, look at their experience, which can include any type of experience, and it may be useful to also consider their experience within project management methodology that you're using. You also want to look at what their availability is like. For example, you may have an awesome resource, but they aren't actually available during the period that you need them for the project. And then determining the scheduling accordingly. That is, not only to make sure people are available when you need them, but also to make sure that you're using them at their full capacity. You don't want someone on a project who is sitting around doing nothing for 50% of their time because you haven't created a schedule that uses their time optimally. Then looking at budget. This is informed based on the costs applicable to the project. Project cost is the total funds needed to complete the project or work that consists of direct costs and indirect costs. The project costs are any expenditures made or estimated to be made to complete the project. And lastly, looking at time. Each project needs to be done within a limited time frame. This is based on outlining the timelines and time requirements of the project. There are a few ways to enhance your resource allocation skills. These include, be a team player. This is important because although you're likely to think that your product is the most important and requires the best and most important resources, etc., it's important to always be a team player. Not only does this benefit the broader company, because in reality, the product that deserves the resources should actually get them, but it also means that the people around you who are also trying to get the same resources will be more trusting of you and your approach if you're more of a team player. If you come in only focused on yourself, it's likely that you will rub a few people up the wrong way, which can ultimately result in people not being by your side or backing you. Focus on the strategy that you're trying to achieve. Products can be highly complex, and it's likely that there will be a lot of detail. It's important to get everyone on the same page and understand your strategy and what you're trying to achieve. Only this will make sure that everyone buys into what you're trying to achieve and you get the correct resources that you need. Allocate scores or rankings. It's important to do this because it gives us an objective measure that you can base your discussions and decisions on. This means that each team and product can be measured against each other and gives a view of what the business is trying to achieve with the resources available. It also helps to remove a lot of emotion from the discussion. Embrace the trade-offs. You aren't always going to get everything you want. What you think is the best for your project may not actually be what is best for the broader company. Don't complain and understand that you win some, you lose some. You won't be able to negotiate every single resource that you're hoping for. Next, let's look at defining the stakeholders. Project stakeholders are the people or groups who have something to gain or lose from your project's outcome. This looks at who the stakeholders for the project are, including customers, decision makers, etc., as well as when each of the stakeholders should be included, communicated with, etc. It's important that you identify the stakeholders and then keep note of who your stakeholders are so that you can continually keep them in the loop and keep them updated. We touched on this earlier. This is the project management approach that you'll be taking to the project. This includes the project methodology that you'll be using, the way of work you will be following, including how different teams and players will communicate. and the tools that you'll be using to run and manage the project. Then we look at the product. This is what the project will be delivering. It can be a physical product, like a cup of coffee, or it can be a service, such as a concert. Then defining the product or what your project is focused on delivering. This includes the project requirements, the scope, and the respective deliverables. Next is identifying and defining the risks. A project risk is an uncertain event that may or may not occur during your project. Contrary to our everyday idea of what risk means, a project risk could either have a negative or a positive effect on progress towards project objectives. This includes identifying the project risks and then creating a contingency plan based on these risks. We will touch on risks a little bit later on. It's important to define the measurements of success so that you can assess whether your project was successful or not. This includes the core project KPIs, the satisfaction of the team, the client, the stakeholders, the execs, etc., as well as whether you delivered the project within the timeframe and within the budget. The term project success refers to the specific criterion established by the client and the project team before the project begins. Teams use these specifications, milestones, and deliverables to evaluate the success of the project after project close. And lastly, holding the kickoff meeting. The aim of the meeting is to get everyone on the same page and pushing in the same direction to achieve the same thing. It is typically the first meeting between the project team members and possibly the client or sponsor. It is the time to set expectations and create a strong working team relationship and morale. It's really important to prepare sufficiently for the kickoff meeting because it really sets the stage for a successful project. It's really the time that people get the first impression of the project. A successfully run and efficient meeting will give the perception that the project will follow in those footsteps, while a poorly managed meeting may give the impression that the project will be run poorly and probably won't be a success. The meeting structure may vary depending on the organization, the project, etc. But the key things to include to cover in the meeting are introductions, so that everyone knows everyone and how each person fits in, etc. Depending on the organization and the people involved, some type of icebreaker or quick game can be a fun way to get the ball rolling here and set the tone for a project that people are actually excited to be part of. The different roles and responsibilities of the different teams and individuals. This will be informed by the project management approach and methodology that you select, as well as informed by the organization's structure, the key deliverables of the project's timeline, assumptions, risks, various dependencies, and the costs and budget for the project. Now let's have a look at being a flexible, adaptable, and fast learner. The project management space is very dynamic and forever changing. To be a successful project manager, it's key to stay up to date with trends, changes in technology, changes within the organization, etc. Keeping flexible, irrespective of the project management approach you take, works to keep the project viable and moving in the right direction. Being adaptable also means that you are more able to embrace challenges which are rife within the project management space. You are more receptive to change, and it often means that you have a level of creativity in order to improvise and find new ways of doing things. It also makes you a better leader. Key here, however, is only to adapt to things that will benefit or aid the project. It's important to remember that being adaptable is not a natural skill, even for the most successful person, but it can be nurtured. A few ways to enhance your skills in being flexible, adaptable, and a fast learner are: 1. Ask questions with the aim to learn, get different opinions, and get information. Be curious. Be willing to make mistakes. This is key to giving you the freedom to be flexible and adapt, and it'll help you to learn fast. Be open-minded to people's ideas, opinions, and other ways of doing things. This links directly with asking questions with the aim to learn and grow. And embrace learning, which goes hand in hand with all of the other points. Some of the ways to do this is to seek out new experiences, take a class, talk to someone new, or read an interesting article. There are so many opportunities to learn and expand your mind. Find the silver lining. It can be difficult to look on the bright side when a project or situation isn't going as planned. But finding the silver lining in these circumstances requires a high level of adaptability and flexibility because you have to reset and reframe your mind and your focus. If you find this hard to do, start by listing down some things that you have learned from the situation. The more you do this, the more optimistic you'll feel, and the easier it will make it for you to overcome these challenges. Do something outside your comfort zone. This can be as simple as brushing your teeth using a different hand, sleeping on a different side of the bed, or reading an article with a viewpoint that you don't necessarily hold. All of these things can help you to be flexible, but will also teach your brain to learn. Don't sweat the small stuff. In being flexible, it's important to learn to ignore small stuff because some things really don't need your attention, frustration, or energy. A misplaced pen doesn't need the same energy as a personal crisis. Key because it can lead to an increase in the productivity and output of your team. It gives you the basis to make informed decisions, which in turn helps the project to move in the right direction. And it allows you to remove roadblocks throughout the project, not just in non-technical areas. In order to develop your technical understanding, you need to identify what you don't know. Knowing and then recognizing your limits is key. Once you know this, you can then identify sources of information to upskill and train yourself. It's important to only learn as much as is practically important. No one expects you to be an expert in all fields. You just need to be able to speak intelligently about the technical aspects of your project, make informed decisions, and be able to generate buy-in. It's not practical to spend all of your time in training rather than actually managing the project. And always remember that I don't know is an acceptable answer. Guessing the answer can put your project at risk and can damage your reputation. Know your limits, and when you don't know the answer, say that you don't know it. An important caveat to this is you should always answer I don't know to the same question once. If you've been asked that question once, I think it's really important to go and find the necessary information and then upskill yourself. This also improves team morale because it shows that you're willing to learn and grow. One of the key things to keep in mind here is that even if you have a high technical understanding, never tell your team how to perform a task. Your responsibility as a project manager is to set, prioritize, and manage tasks in order to tell your team what needs to be achieved. But they are the technical experts and they should know how to do what needs to be done. Okay, now let's look at a quick exercise. Research shows that being able to transfer knowledge enhances your cognitive flexibility and allows you to think more creatively. It also aids in improving your fast learning abilities because if you aren't able to transfer skills and knowledge of a new context, your learning may not have actually had the necessary impact. With that in mind, please select one of these topics and explain the concept in your own words and out loud. This lets you quickly and clearly identify things that you don't understand. Remember that if you just do this in your head, your mind often jumps over things that you don't know without you realizing it. Whereas if you say it out loud, it'll be very clear that there's certain elements that you don't understand fully. It also helps your brain to determine how you can use the concept and apply it in real life situations. After you've explained these points, have a look online to make sure that your knowledge is actually accurate. Now let's have a look at a case study. In order to be a flexible, adaptable, and fast learner, it relies hugely on mindset. How we automatically react to situations, particularly in stressful situations, largely depends on mindset. Therefore, it's really important to shift to an adaptable and learning mindset. By shifting to a learning mindset, we can be flexible and are better able to find solutions. Here are a range of statements from a rigid, scared, stressed, or victimized perspective. Please take each of these and reframe them into an adaptable learning mindset. Here are some examples of ways to reframe these mindsets. Yours may not be exactly the same, but they should have a theme of flexibility, curiosity, a focus on learning, and confidence in your abilities. Being able to shift your mindset and reframe doesn't come naturally to everyone. But if you consciously make the effort to do this, over time it'll become more and more natural. entail and how to develop them, the importance of self-awareness, and how to communicate in a collaborative manner. Research shows that leadership directly influences employees, and often people in leadership positions aren't aware of just how big of an impact they actually have. Being a strong leader is key for successful project management. If the teams within a project do not respect you as a leader, they will be a lot less willing to follow your directions and less likely to do everything that it takes to meet the outcomes within the timelines. It can definitely make running a project more of a headache if you don't have the respect of the various teams. Leadership relates to the management of people and tasks throughout the process. Whether it's strong leadership or poor leadership, it has a direct impact on the teams involved and therefore ultimately on the project. Your leadership role within the project management space is to guide and motivate the various teams to achieve the project goals and meet the deliverables. Being a good and successful leader relies on a combination of skills and behaviors. Research has shown that there are a few skills and behaviors that are key to being a successful manager and leader. These include 1. An authentic and honest approach. Trust is key within leadership. The project teams and people around us need to trust us in order to follow our lead. So it's key that leaders are authentic and honest because it drives trust. Key to note here is that while authenticity and honesty are key, it must also be done with a kindness. For example, if you're giving feedback or constructive criticism, it needs to be honest and authentic, but it still needs to be conveyed with kindness. A harsh honesty and authenticity won't generate trust, but might actually do the opposite. 2. Consistency. This links back to trust again. Being a consistent person and leader means that the teams can always trust that what you're doing and the decisions that you are making are authentic, rational, and fair. And in turn, that you will treat them with fairness and consistency. This also links to the fact that you do what you'll say you do and you follow through on things. This generates trust. 3 is competency. It's fair to say that it's very difficult to trust, follow, or support someone who you think is incompetent. So, being a competent leader is key in ensuring that the various teams believe in you and support your decisions. If they think you're competent to lead teams and make decisions, they are more likely to align with your thinking and follow your approach. 4. Having a vision and inspiring those around you. As many of the teams within the project will not report directly into you, inspiring the people in those teams is a key way to getting them to do what you're asking them to do and follow your approach. By having a clear vision and inspiring the teams, you can more easily align the teams and work towards a common goal. 5. Good, regular, transparent communication. This ensures that everyone is on your page and moving in the same direction. It also makes sure that everyone you're working with is aware of what they should be doing and are constantly informed of changes, etc. This, again, increases trust. 6. Accountability. Accountability is key within a healthy team working environment. Being an accountable leader is so important because it inspires accountability within the team and creates a good, open culture within the project management teams. This is particularly important within iterative projects, where each member is fully responsible for what they're working on. In this environment, accountability is absolutely necessary. 7. Be respectful. This may actually be the most important element. Each team member has something to contribute and value to add, and it must be recognized that the whole is greater than the parts. This also inspires a good team culture and a good working environment. 8. Bringing people together, getting everyone on the same page, and inspiring everyone in the same direction is really important for a successful project. Generating the support and teamwork is really important and hugely shaped by leadership. And 9. A really important leadership skill is to be a good problem solver. This is key to keeping the project moving forward, overcoming issues, and helping to move the team and project forward. Now let's have a look at relationship management and interpersonal skills. Any project inherently has numerous teams, individuals, and stakeholders. Each of these need to be managed. This is particularly the case in the fast-moving, constantly changing environment of iterative projects. Successful relationship management and interpersonal skills directly impact on the productivity of teams and individuals involved, and more widely on team morale. Although project managers are responsible for the success of the project, most of the time they aren't actually completing the work themselves. Because of this, project managers need help and input from other people. Over and above this, project managers also typically need to manage the team, but usually they don't actually have anyone reporting into them. So they have a limited direct influence over these people. In order to do each of these things successfully and land a successful project, both relationship management and interpersonal skills are so important. Successful relationship management and interpersonal skills require regular communication. That is, to communicate regularly, to share information and feedback. We're going to touch on this in a little bit more detail later on. This is directly linked to active listening, and it's also something we're going to touch on shortly. It ensures that you not only hear the information that is being shared, but also that you take on the information and you actually understand it. The stages of active listening are to listen to the information, to understand the information, validate what you are understanding with the person who's giving you the information, and then to act on it. Empathy. Conducting yourself with empathy helps to build rapport with the people around you. People who are empathetic are able to understand others' perspectives, emotions, and opinions. This allows you to work better with people from different cultures and backgrounds, build an environment of respect, and can positively impact on the team culture because it establishes a common ground and makes a more enjoyable working environment. Setting clear expectations. This involves making sure that everyone is on the same page and working in the same direction. It helps to maintain healthy working relationships when everyone is on the same page and understands what is required of each person. Praise and recognition. This is really important because it makes sure that everyone involved in the project is more willing to contribute and possibly even go out of their way to help out. Research highlights the positive impact that this has on people's neurological and psychological state. It's really important for employee engagement and getting the most out of everyone working in the team. It helps everyone feel valued and increases productivity. And getting involved, getting your hands dirty and taking responsibility. If the people you're working with see you getting involved, solving issues in a hands-on manner, and taking responsibility, it creates a really great culture of everyone doing the same. It's awesome to have a project where everyone is willing to help and go out of their way to solve issues. Also, if you take responsibility for things, it creates a culture of people who do this too. It really is important that each team member does this too and takes responsibility for what they're doing. Give them your time. Yes, the project one before the meeting starts. There obviously must be a balance between this. It's unlikely that you will have a good relationship with someone who never does the work that they're supposed to and it all ends up with you. To some people, building good working relationships comes naturally and easily, and to others, it may need a good tool for this. Essentially, this is a matrix which includes everyone involved in the product. It includes information about them that's important to remember. This can be their work style and preference, their motivations and goals in the business, etc. This will help you to not only keep track of the different nuances of people, but will also encourage you to learn more and be more aware of the people around you, their preferences, etc. As part of this, you can also include how often you need to communicate with that person and what meetings, stand-ups, etc. they're involved in. A relationship matrix may be a bit formal for some people, but it's really up to you. Here are a few more ways to develop your relationship management skills. 1. Learn to listen. Giving someone your full attention can help them to develop trust in you. Recognize emotions in others. If you can recognize emotions, it'll help you to react with empathy, build rapport, and better connect with the person. Set clear expectations. By establishing clear expectations, it means you're both on the same page and that you can both deliver what you intended to. Not meeting someone's expectations because you weren't aware of them is a quick way to lose trust. Develop shared values. If you're both aiming for the same thing, it's a lot easier to build a relationship. This can be a shared goal of the project or something as simple as liking the same coffee place. Show respect. By giving people the respect they deserve, you can build a trustworthy relationship. Do what you say you're going to do. This can be having someone's back, sending them the document you said you would, or buying them the coffee that you promised them. Irrespective of what it is, if you do what you promise, you'll inherently win people's trust. Give praise where it's due. Provide thoughtful, honest, and authentic feedback to make people see that their work is recognized and make them feel good. Emotional intelligence and reactions. It means that you've taken a deeper look at your emotions, why you feel a certain way, your strengths, when faced with more likely to act on your emotions reflexively. This can involve yelling, blaming, ranting, becoming more rigid, etc. How you behave impacts on how people perceive you. It directly affects the people around you, and it can impact on their performance. Being self-aware involves knowing and understanding your emotions, managing your emotions in a productive and constructive manner. And it has a big role in keeping you motivated and keeping the people around you motivated. Some research indicates that it's not actually your education or intelligence level that predicts your success, it's actually your emotional intelligence. This is feelings and actions. Try to write down and track your plans and priorities. This involves writing down what you want to do and then tracking your progress. Having it written down will give you insights into why you did or didn't achieve what you were hoping to. Another approach here can be to write down what you view your strengths and weaknesses as. This can help you to see how you're growing and developing over time. Get regular feedback. This can be formal or informal and can be from work colleagues or from friends. This will give you a different perspective and insights into yourself and your behavior. You can reflect on it, consider it, and work on areas that you'd like to. Another way to approach this is to get people you trust to call you out on or bring your attention to behavior that doesn't align with what you're hoping to portray. For example, if you're hoping to become less self-critical, you could get a trusted person to point out when you're being critical to yourself. This can help you to identify it in the future and hopefully correct it. Self-conscious reflection. You can either write down your self-reflections, consciously self-reflect. It's easy to act without thinking and only really focus on our own needs. But self-awareness involves acknowledging that your actions impact others and then identifying how it impacts on them. And take psychometric tests. There are various different tests available, both free and paid for. I suggest taking a few different ones as they each your character, etc. I find that these tests can be particularly helpful to improve self-awareness. Now let's have a look at collaborative communication. Collaborative communication is a key element in ensuring the success of the project. It involves the sharing of information and ideas to achieve a certain goal. It is communication that helps individuals work better together than they would in isolation. Regular, transparent, and clear communication ensures alignment and gets everyone on the same page and moving in the same direction. This is applicable to communication within and between teams, individuals, customers, and stakeholders. This involves clearly communicating objectives, what is expected from who, and the separation of work. And it is essential to ensure efficiency within and between cross-functional and multidisciplinary teams. Collaborative communication can happen in various ways, including face-to-face, email, texts, calls, etc. To make sure it is successful, it should be done in a clear, thoughtful, and respectful manner. It is important to get your idea across in a clear way, but it is also important to respect the contribution that others make. Be open-minded in your approach. This allows you to not just communicate, but communicate in a collaborative way and actively take in what is being said. If you have a closed-minded approach, it's very possible that you may not actually hear or understand what is being said. This can be a big disadvantage and may impact on the level of trust and respect people have for you. You may not necessarily buy into what another person is saying, but you have to be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. Going into conversations with a closed mind may mean that you shut yourself off from hearing potentially valuable insights. Be open to compromise. This is important for reaching a common consensus with the aim to hopefully achieve an outcome for the greater good. Communication and communication lines need to be open, and communication needs to be ongoing to make sure everyone has the information that they need, that they aren't left out of the loop, and that they're aware of any changes. And centralized communications. This helps to make sure everyone is on the same page and that everyone has all of the information that they need. If your communications aren't centralized, it may mean that you forget to tell someone something important, but it also means that you may spend a large portion of your time just trying to communicate and share information, which isn't very helpful or productive. One of the largest barriers to effective collaborations is often that the team members actually just don't know each other and have no personal connection. If possible, get the whole team to go for lunch to get to know each other. However, with the remote working world that we live in, this might not actually be possible. But there are many technological solutions that can be used to support this. It can be using good video conferencing tools, group chatting, and messaging apps. And it may be a good idea to encourage team members to have a 10-minute coffee session at the beginning of each day with someone new. And one of the key elements of collaborative communication is active listening. Active listening is absolutely key in any type of communication, but research suggests that we only remember 25 to 50% of what we hear. By becoming a better listener, you can avoid or minimize conflict. You can improve your productivity, ability to influence, and negotiate. Active listening is a conscious effort to hear not only the words that are being said, but maybe more importantly, the entire message that is being communicated. In order to achieve this, you need to focus on what is being said, not get distracted, not form counter arguments in your head, etc. Some steps to becoming an active listener. Here are some steps to becoming an active listener. Pay attention. Give the speaker your undivided attention and acknowledge what they are saying. This can be done by making eye contact with the speaker, shut down distracting thoughts, stop yourself from mentally preparing a counter argument, stop yourself from being distracted by the environment, take note of both parties' body language, provide the speaker with an open mind. Conveying. It's open, authentic spaces and the way of work. It supports all types of teams, including teams that are remote and hybrid. It helps with overcoming challenges and promotes better decision making and problem solving. It promotes growth within the team because team members are able to learn from each other. It improves employee engagement, motivation, and creates a happier and healthier working environment. Here are some ways to improve your communication and storytelling skills. Actively listen. Active listening means that you are receiving and processing the information that someone is sharing with you. Good communication involves listening more than talking, but this may not come naturally to everyone, so I'm going to touch on a few more tips again. This involves looking at the speaker, refraining from preparing your response while they are talking, focusing on the topic, etc. Show you're listening. This can be done through body language, such as nodding and smiling, or verbal nudges to encourage the speaker. Give feedback on what the speaker is saying. Listen with an open mind and don't judge what is being said. Don't interrupt them when they're speaking, and confirm that you understood what they were saying with the speaker. For example, if the speaker has finished telling you about some new requirement, you can say something along the lines of, "Okay, please can I just make sure that I understand what you said," and then summarize what you understood about what they were saying. Use meeting agendas and stick to them. This is important to ensure that you are communicating what needs to be communicated and coming to meetings prepared with the necessary information, ideas, context, etc. Use road mapping tools. This helps you to communicate in a visual, simplified way and keep track of everything. This also ensures that everyone is on the same page. It can help to clearly show where you are now and where you want to get to and how you're going to get there. Create a good story. This helps to communicate ideas in a clear, memorable, and personal way. Getting buy-in involves giving people a reason to care about your new product or feature and sell it in an original way. This also involves creating the context and setting the stage so that people understand where you're coming from. For example, let's say we're the inventor of a laptop. If we were trying to get buy-in for our idea, instead of just jumping into the fact that giving customers a portable computer could be a good idea, it would likely generate more buy-in if you explain your thinking. Something along the lines of, desktops have become the norm for almost everyone, but this ties you and your work to one spot. It's not mobile. Imagine giving people, whether it's students, employees, etc., the freedom and convenience of working from anywhere. In this way, you're building the image of the story around your idea, and it'll mean that people are more likely to be able to visualize what you're trying to sell, and then are more likely to buy into it. Practice. In order to create a clear, impactful story, it often requires practice. This also helps you to make sure you communicate the information you need to communicate and don't forget anything. For example, if you have an important presentation coming up, just to make eye contact makes people more likely to buy into what you're saying. Help you in many aspects of life. This is one of the ways you can help yourself become more self-aware. We are currently running a relatively large project to introduce a new feature into our app. We have a range of different stakeholders across the business, and we're struggling with project support and awareness. We're going to create a matrix to assess the level of stakeholder engagement in the project currently, and then assess where our desired level of engagement should be. This will help us to improve stakeholder buy-in, improve the levels of support for the project, and improve awareness and overall engagement for our project. So first, you can see the stakeholder power interest matrix here. Now you can see the different project stakeholders mapped into this matrix. This looks at which stakeholder needs what. This reflects the ideal situation, not the current situation. In our current project, we aren't doing a great job at stakeholder management, but this is not reflected here. What is reflected here is where stakeholders should fit. Now we know what the level of engagement should be with the various project stakeholders. Next, we will look at what the stakeholder engagement actually is versus where we hope it'll be. Here we have the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. This is grouped into 5 different categories, namely, unaware of stakeholders. These are stakeholders who are unaware of the project or the impact that the project may have on them. Next is resistant stakeholders. This is stakeholders who are resistant to any changes that the project may bring. We then have neutral stakeholders, who are neither resistant to the project nor are they particularly supportive of it. Then we have supportive stakeholders, who understand the potential impact of the project and support the project and the changes it will make. And lastly are the leading stakeholders. These are stakeholders who are actively working to ensure the success of the project and the changes it will make. This matrix indicates the current level of engagement of the stakeholders we just showed. By figuring out who is unaware of the project, who is resistant, and who is neutral, we are able to identify who has influence over the project and who has a high interest in the project, and then we can increase our communications with them and make sure they have the most up-to-date information. This is particularly important for people who have a big influence over the project. For those that are currently supportive or leading the project, we can also continue to communicate with them, making sure they are kept up to date and also that they continue to support the project and hopefully in doing so, get others on board. For those that are unaware of the project, but actually have the power over the project or who have interest in the project, it is important to communicate with them and share updates to create awareness and engagement. Now I would like you to mark up on this matrix where these stakeholders should ideally fall. Okay, and here's the case study answer. This is where the level of engagement should be with all of our stakeholders. Ideally, most stakeholders should be supportive of the project because this will help to generate buy-in and get the project moving if we have the right levels of support. At the very worst, stakeholders can be neutral, but this is definitely not ideal. Here, the project sponsor and the product manager should have an active role with the project manager in actively ensuring that the project is a success, has buy-in, etc. Hello and welcome to Lesson 5, Sticking to and then how to ensure the documentation. Some are mental or internal, while others are external. Mental organizational skills help with analyzing complex issues and coming up with solutions. They often involve creativity, strategic thinking, and they usually help you stay calm under pressure. External organizational skills are relatively easy to develop as they're tangible, and there are clear steps you can take to achieve them, and in doing so, become more organized. This includes physical organization, such as keeping your environment tidy, keeping your diary up to date, documenting things where necessary, and storing things in a logical place where you can easily find them. Goal setting is a way to identify things you need to or want to achieve in a clear and logical manner. Hand in hand with this is planning, which involves setting aside time for yourself to achieve the things you want to achieve. And then you actually have to stick to this time and do the things that you aim to. Here are some effective prioritization skills. Successful decision making, because you need to make decisions about what takes priority over what. This prioritization and decision making should be informed by and based on the balancing of requirements, time, resources, etc. In order to successfully achieve this, it's important that you have deep knowledge of the product, project, technology, organization, etc. This is important because it'll make sure that your decisions and subsequent prioritization is informed and correct. The way in which to develop prioritization skills is to prioritize things based on the value that they add. In doing this, you need to identify urgent or important projects and prioritize based on that. Key to this is to be flexible and understand that it may be necessary to prioritize and then reprioritize things. It's important to go with the flow. This is particularly applicable within the iterative project management approach because it really requires flexibility and adaptability. And a key element, and maybe the most important, is to learn to say no. It's not possible to do everything, so a key thing is being able to say no where it's necessary. This can ultimately benefit the project and will definitely benefit the different teams. It is often better to push back and say no rather than overworking your teams to achieve each and everything. Now looking at practically prioritizing. Firstly is to create a task list. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of all the tasks that you have. It's likely that you'll have many tasks coming from various people, channels, departments, clients, etc. Capturing all of them can help you to keep track of them as well as prioritize them because you can see them all in one place. Now you can use the 4 Ds of time management.